What's going on, you guys? So I can finally see the light at the end of this tunnel, man. This car is pretty much back together right now, but I just want to go through the engine bay especially and make sure that everything is buttoned up. I want to torque everything down the way it should be, so let's take a look. So this thing has really come back together, man. Thank you so much to Travis and Dushan for all their help, as always. It was such a big help getting this thing all back together. But so I just want to make sure that everything is torqued down, you know, and that's not saying anything against those guys or anything. It's just I physically didn't do every connection here myself, and even the connections that I did do, I want to make sure that everything is just bolted down and, you know, nothing was missed. With this track day coming up, man, you know, we got to take care of it now, not when we're out on track and find a problem. One issue I had, you know, when we were leaking before was right under the water pipe here that leads out to the top of the radiator. Under here, that bottom screw just wasn't tightened down just enough. It looked like it was, but it wasn't. And I was going ahead and forming a puddle down there after I ran the car. So just tightening that down, and that's kind of what I want to do here, is just go through everything. So no real rhyme or reason to this, but I'm going to start on this side of the engine. I'm going to make sure that all the coolant hoses, all the clamps there are buttoned up real nice and tight. And then we're just going to work our way around the engine, and we're going to get finally back to the intake manifold, where I'm going to make sure that that middle bolt, especially, you know, the one that's up underneath it, is tightened down real well. So one thing that we did that's really nice is went ahead and upgraded all these clamps here to these nice metal clamps instead of that little paper clip kind of clamp that comes from stock. So here, you know, just tighten this guy up just a touch. Not trying to overkill this stuff or nothing, you know, I just want to make sure that nothing's going to be wiggling off. Just kind of doing this sort of test right here just to make sure. And actually on that very first one there, I just tightened that down quite a bit. And not over excessive either. So I am wondering if I was getting just a little bit of a drop coming out of there. Because if you see down there, you see that? That was a little spot of coolant from before. I'm kind of wondering if that may have been the spot. You see, this is worthwhile, man. I know it may be stupid little things, but dude, you do not want to have those kind of problems when you're out on track. Trust me, I know all about cooling issues. You know, all these type of connections, I'm just making sure they're tight. You know, I'm not doing it to any sort of spec. I just went ahead and checked these three coolant lines right here, and then running up to the back of the IACV. Just so y'all know too, that is an Integra hose. Since I went ahead and got this Integra radiator, that is just the Integra hose that tightened down real nice up there and fits real well on the bottom outlet. The bottom outlet on a D-series radiator is actually a little bit smaller. This pipe here fits just awesome on my Integra radiator, and you tighten it down just a little bit more up here at the thermostat. And if y'all remember, this is my connection here that I made. It's a little step-down piece that goes into a regular D-series pipe here. So again, just going ahead and making sure that everything is just snug while we're up here. Yeah, those all feel good. Yeah, very good. Just kind of doing the wiggle test, you know, see if you feel anything under there. Yeah, that all's nice and tight. That's what she said. So here you go, prime example. This that I pointed out to you definitely needed tightening. I didn't see it when I was actually doing it, but look, there's the coolant from it. I was actually driving this thing over the weekend, and I went and stopped to get gas. And I swear it was from my car, but underneath I saw a little bit of coolant, you know, and I'm like, I got real nervous. I'm like, oh God, you know, not more leaks, more problems, oh God. And so this is what made me want to do this video, just going and buttoning everything up. I know that's resolved now. I know that's where it was coming from, because there's always just a small amount coming from there. It's very worthwhile. All right, super disclaimer time. I'm going to be throwing some numbers at you all, torque numbers. These are numbers that I've got from a Haynes manual and from online sources for the small little things that I could not find. Do at your own risk. If you do not agree with the torque specs that I am going ahead and presenting to you, don't use them. Don't tell me about it. It's okay. If you have an issue with them, take it up with Haynes or write it in the comments and I promise I won't look at it. Thanks. So looking at the fuel system, these two main connections right here from the fuel filter to the rail, 16 foot-pound on that guy, 9 foot-pound on this guy. Now, just to let you all know before we all get too crazy here with these numbers, 16 foot-pound and 9 foot-pound, I mean, that's essentially hand tight. If you go and set your torque wrench to 20, which is what most torque wrenches will start at least the bigger ones, you know, it's not that hard to get to 20, okay? You can hand tight something. And that's kind of how a lot of the bolts are on here, especially with the exhaust header. But with these fuel bolts here, I'm just gonna make sure they're nice and snug. Oh yeah, that's good. And the one on top of the filter is good too. All these clips are nice and put down. The little metal rings are there. Confident in that. And then of course the two little nuts up here, just hand tight, you know, between 9 and 15 foot-pound. Probably the same with the VTEC solenoid, 9, 15 foot-pound. You just want to make sure it's nice and tight. You're not leaking oil. It is a brand new gasket in there as well. And then since we're here, these aren't really bolts that you need to tighten down super hard, but again, just hand tight. But we have all the grounds going here to this bolt. And then of course you want to make sure this coolant temperature sensor is nice and snug, which it is. Not feeling any leaks under there. The extension and the 12 loaded on there for the distributor. If y'all remember, we did set the timing, and yeah, that's nice and tight. I did make sure to go through and make sure all this was tight. Again, we're just double checking, and yeah, all those are nice and snug. Just hand tight. Move it around to the front of the engine. We talked about the water pipe here at the beginning of the video. I'm confident now that both of those are tightened up. So like I said, I had a bit of a leak, but I went ahead and fixed that. Now I just got the 12 millimeter loaded up here. These exhaust manifold nuts. These are essentially just hand tight. It says 16 foot-pound, but again, that is hand tight. And yeah, all these are filling real nice. Turn that one just a touch. The bottom row there got a little bit of a turn, probably not even quarter though. Valve cover bolts. Yeah, those guys are good. All right, camshaft pulley bolt, 27 foot-pound. We'll go ahead and got the nice Craftsman torque wrench out. Yep, 27, hear the clicking? All right, working our way around this thing. So now the intake manifold bolts. I'm pretty confident that these top bolts are nice and snug. Again, they're gonna be like 15, 16 foot-pound. These things do not require a lot. You do not have to totally kill them putting them on. I'm just making sure that these are nice and snug, and that's exactly the way they are feeling to me. It's the bottom ones really that are the difficult ones to get to. I got my short extension in the 12 millimeter here for this bottom one. That's out on the side. Got a little bit of a turn out of that. Now this bolt over here on the intake manifold, this is the one that gave us some trouble before. This guy right down here. That thing wasn't quite snug enough, and as you see, it's in a really weird spot. So that thing has a coolant passageway just beyond here. You can see the tube coming out right here. And with that not being tight enough, it was just dripping enough to cause enough of a concern to me. I went ahead and tightened that up real good. That thing is on there well now, and there's no more leaking coming from it. In hindsight, what I would have done is put the intake manifold back on the cylinder head before putting it in the car. If you all remember back to when I took the thing off originally, I took the cylinder head and the intake manifold off. It made it really easy to take the intake manifold off while I was out of the car on the ground. I should have done that putting it back in, but hey, I learned. So then you have, of course, the infamous middle bolt, and it's pretty much better to get under the car and go ahead and reach up and use a socket to go ahead and tighten that thing down. And it is good. So everything on the intake manifold, solid. One more part of the fuel system that I didn't mention earlier, the fuel pressure regulator here. These two little 10 mils, again about 16 foot-pound, just hand tight. Those are good. And then we have these bolts right here that are for holding on the throttle cable. That used a little bit of a turn, but good, nice and tight. Clutch bracket, 10 mils, 16 foot-pound. Bracket to hold on the throttle cable, 16 foot-pound, all good. And now this guy, got the stock air box. Yeah, I'm still using the stock air box. Gotta go ahead and put it on. Everything else seems to be pretty good. That little bit of a coolant issue that I was thinking I was having, it was down there on the top of the trans. It was definitely coming out of this pipe right here. And just so you know, this was what would go into the heater core. But of course we removed that. We got a nice block off plate down there. So this guy right here is just rerouted from the block straight back into the thermostat housing there. I think what I'm going to do is go to this same company that I got this piece from. They actually make some nice 90-degree bends, 180-degree, all different kinds of bends that you can put in here. And I think it would look a little bit nicer. Maybe it looks a little pinched up there, and so I'd rather not have that, of course. I think I'm going to be addressing that soon. Sorry, back to the air box. I'm going to go ahead and button that up, and then, yeah, we'll be looking good. Yeah, I know it's stock, but hey, I mean, come on. It's cool, right? Come on, it's cool. So I just got to tighten that bolt up that goes up to the intake manifold there for the air box. And yeah, bolt this guy down over here. And listen, guys, I know you probably watched this and were like, well, we just tightened down a bunch of bolts in an episode. Well, what did we just do? I get it. Okay, it's not the most exciting episode in the world. But for me, this is called peace of mind. And just going through all these little bolts here, just to double check in my own mind, gives me the confidence that my car is just going to do what it's supposed to do. I have done everything on my end as far as this is concerned. Of course, we touched everything in this car, but you all saw in my axle episode, I went ahead and buttoned everything up properly down there. I'm going to be doing the same on this side, the driver's side as well. Just make sure that everything's buttoned up just like I did this side, but it was ready to go the last track day too. But it's one of those habits to get into, especially in my mind anyway, is to every time I'm driving this thing, I just want to make sure that everything is solid. I'm not going to have any surprises with something falling off or whatever, There's enough that can go wrong on a track day. You got to try to take care of what you can before you get out there. So if you all watched it, if you made it to this point, I sincerely appreciate it, you guys. I know that this wasn't the most exciting thing in the world, but we've definitely got some exciting things coming. Again, I see that light at the end of the tunnel, and we're going to be test driving this thing and getting it ready for the firm. See you next time.